Okay, good morning again, everyone. I see participant numbers are still increasing, but in the sake of time, we'll get started today. So it's great to see everyone again and welcome back. And thank you so much for joining. We're here, of course, for the second part of a two-part workshop on gender equality in global capital markets. And as we start, please feel free, as we said, to reintroduce yourselves in the chat. We have a packed schedule, so we'll get started to make sure you have all the resources you can. And of course, at the start, I want to give another big thank you to the Securities and Exchange Commission of Pakistan and Pakistan Stock Exchange for hosting. It's a collaborative effort. It wouldn't be possible without the exchange and the Exchange Commission. And I would like to note our training was developed with the IFC, UN Women, Columbia University, and supported by the Luxembourg government. For those who missed part one, you can find it on the SSE event page for this event, and we'll also share this in the chat throughout the training, the link back to this page, which is also where you'll find the handouts and afterwards the recordings for today's session. We'll quickly go through some housekeeping, which is essentially the same as last time. You are on mute. This is just to make sure there's no background noise, etc. But participation and questions are highly encouraged. You can use the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen. You can raise your hand, and if we have time at the end for any questions and answers, we'll make sure to call on those individuals. But please put comments and discussion with other participants in the chat, and any questions you have, they can also be anonymous. Please ask them. We have some great expertise on the call. As with the last session, this is live facilitation for the next 2 hours. Your participation is strongly encouraged and expected. We have mentees and polls again. And at the end of today's session, we'll go through with you about the certificate and certification, which is via a feedback survey. We do recommend finishing the optional homework before and finishing the feedback survey within 1 week. But as said, at the end of the session, we'll go through what's required so that you can receive your certificate for Mondays and today's training. With that, I'm joined by my colleague, Deputy Coordinator of the SSE, Sustainable Stock Exchange Initiative, Lisa Remke. I'm myself, Landon Wilcock, a Project Officer with the UNSSE. We're also very fortunate to have with us an expert from UN Women, Fatima Qureshi, who's a Partnership and Coordination Associate. So thank you so much, Fatima, for joining. We also have Paul, who's often joining us on these sessions, so it's always great to have Paul back on the call, who's a Sustainable Finance Manager with the Luxembourg Stock Exchange and who has a real wealth of knowledge on gender products and the overall topic of gender in sustainable markets. So thank you, Paul, for joining us. And we also have Nina Pearson, a marketing and communication specialist from Edge, joining us. We gave a brief overview of Edge last time, but today we're also fortunate to have Nina here with us today to talk us through more about Edge and this important certification process you can also go through as a private company. As a reminder, this course has 4 modules which have been developed to walk you through 4 steps for improving gender equality performance for global markets. Today, we'll be focusing on the second 2 steps, which are implement and communicate. This is building off what we learned last session, so hopefully you were able to join us for the last session. If you weren't, again, the recording is available online. An important note here is that this is an ongoing process. So once you've started communicating on your gender equality performance, this does not mean you are done. This, like many sustainability related topics, will be a constant process of improvement. And while we're presenting these steps in order, in reality, it's likely you'll be working on all 4 steps or multiple steps in unison. We have 2 key objectives for our training today, which we hope you're able to achieve in these next 2 hours together. First, we would like to help you understand how to capture market value for gender equality performance, be that through gender smart investment strategies or through the creation of gender-focused financial products. Second, we would like to help you today to communicate gender-related information with internal stakeholders for effective communication and to identify the guidelines you can use for communicating gender-related information with external stakeholders to know what information investors are looking for in corporate reports. So to achieve these objectives, we have planned for about 45 minutes each for each of these two parts. We also have a short 5-minute break again. We'll have some introductory comments and times to share resources and any of your questions remaining at the end, fingers crossed, and we'll do our best to stay on time for this session. With that, we have our first participatory part of the session of what do you know already. So my colleague Lisa just shared the Menti link in the chat. So like last session, we'll be using Menti for some live participation. So I'd ask all of you on the webinar to go to that link now. There's a few questions there. And what is your current level of comfort on this topic? So how much do you already know about gender lens investments and disclosures? So that's a scale of, I believe, 0 to 10 or 1 to 10 of what your comfort is. And I'm just going to share my screen here so that you can see some of the results coming in. Okay, so we have about 20 answers coming in, or 20 responses. It seems like most individuals are kind of at the midpoint of identifying the value that gender equality can add to investment strategies. So there's some level of comfort, but I think it's fair to say with these responses that there's more understanding and knowledge to be had. So this is a good starting point, but hopefully you'll get a bit more comfortable with these topics as we go on. Uh, Now, the next question, oh, sorry, sometimes this acts up. So the next question you can go to now. Oh, sorry. Do, do, do. Sorry, just some minor tech issues here, but that's okay. So there should be a second question on the Menti for you. So if you can go to the next question, um, hopefully it's working now. Okay. So some minor tech issues here, but that's okay. We'll move along and I'll pull the slides back up for all of you to see. Okay. Sorry about the minor tech glitch there, but we'll get started by noting on the next slide. There was a question there asking you about what an objective was, and we noted that equality is the objective when we're aiming to advance gender equality. But we want to do a quick review of what does equality really mean. You should remember this diagram from last time, and as a reminder, what we discussed here is how this plays out in a boardroom scenario. So we say diversity is ensuring that multiple identities are represented. This can include sex, gender, culture, caste, race or ethnicity, religion, age, disability, and more. Diversity is about having a seat in the boardroom, and equity is about being recognized and reorganizing power distribution and being able to speak So you can think of it as providing a microphone to those who are quiet. Last but not least, we must also ensure inclusion, and that is ensuring that every individual feels welcomed, giving them equal opportunity to connect, belong, and grow, to contribute to the organization, advance their careers, and feel comfortable and confident being their authentic selves. So we can say that inclusion is like having interpretation or headsets that allow everyone to understand each other and feel welcome. So we say if diversity is counting people, inclusion is making people count. Now, last time we focused on two key areas, preparation, where we set out the groundwork for understanding key terminology, the business case, and human rights case. And we also looked at how the world is doing so far in terms of gender equality in corporate leadership. So as a reminder, we learned that improving gender equality provides many benefits to society and the economy beyond the boardroom or corporate environment. For example, we saw that studies have shown that gender equality can decrease violence in society, increase economic productivity, and also increase resilience against financial and environmental crises. Now, just as a reminder, what we did not say was that women themselves drive all of these benefits. It's important to remember that it's the equality part that has such an impact. Let's also remember that increasing equality in corporate leadership also has been found to create important benefits such as increased profit, increased transparency, and improved environmental impacts. As well, thanks to Fatima, we also learned about the UN Women's Empowerment Principles and shared with you how you can use these principles to get started on enhancing gender equality. As a reminder, the seventh principle, measurement and reporting, was highlighted as one of the key principles. We'll be discussing more on this today and how to get started with public disclosures, but remember, there's more information to be found in the WEPs in the details. Finally, a brief reminder, since we did not have much time to cover this slide in our last session, these are some of the action points you can take. This slide came out after our activity that I ran through, or actually Lisa ran through last session with the two fictitious companies, Owl Inc. and Peacock PLC. As a reminder, we found that corporate culture played a really important role in making sure we're setting ourselves up for success. However good the intentions, if we don't take into consideration the corporate culture and the barriers preventing improved equality, we won't achieve our objectives and we could waste money, resources, or even make the problem worse. A few actions to flag here include providing gender-sensitive training for HR staff and managers to ensure a fair recruitment process and enhance diversity, instigating policies aimed at providing equal opportunities for advancement that enhances equity for employees, doing research to identify barriers such as external pay gap reports, which we'll hear more about later, to enhance inclusion. And of course, this all requires effective communication from the top to institutionalize the desired corporate culture. So hopefully that helps refresh a bit on some of the key terminology that's really important to these webinars. And with that, we're going to transition to the third unit, which looks at gender lens finance and the market mechanisms that can support the principles we discussed on Monday. So I'll turn it over to Lisa for this next session.
Thank you very much, Landon. And it's great to see you all online and back again here with us. When looking at implementation of gender equality, oops, there we go. We'll talk a bit about products that support market action, and we'll also look at mechanisms that add value and promote gender equality in markets. Let's first look at how financial products are being used to support gender equality and what opportunities lie within those financing mechanisms for gender allied companies. Let's get started and let's look at the trends that we are seeing in sustainable finance more broadly. This chart that you see here on the slide, which you can also find in the latest UNCTAD World Investment Report, shows that in 2023, the total number of sustainability-themed funds worldwide increased, although the rate of growth has slowed down since 2021. The total now stands at 7,485 funds, which is up 7% from 2022. These funds in total are worth around 3 trillion US dollars. We do see in 2023 a decrease in global net investment flows to sustainable funds, but it's important to note that this decline was a result of depressed asset values and investor withdrawals amidst persistent market uncertainties, including things like high inflation, rising interest rates, poor market returns, and of course the looming risk of a recession. As such, sustainability-themed funds remain an important tool to direct capital towards sustainable development. We are also seeing significant growth in gender lens investing. However, the data on gender lens investing is more difficult to measure, and we have less clear of an idea of the exact magnitude of funds that consider these factors. While we don't have enough time today to dive into this topic in depth, we have provided you with some extra slides in your handout on this. So if this is something that you want to look more into, if you want to learn more about it, please review the handout slides after today's workshop and check it out in your own time as well. So you may be asking yourself, what is gender lens investing? Let's take a moment to discuss that, and please use the chat and share with us what you think gender lens investing is. You can drop anything in there that you want. What comes to your mind when you hear gender lens investing first? Just giving you a second to type that out. Exactly. If you want, you can use the same chat that you also use to introduce yourself in. And you can investing opportunities regardless of gender discrimination. Very good idea there. Investing for improving employability and entrepreneurship programs. It's a really good sense of gender lens investing, your gender sensitive investment decision making. Really good. Keep those ideas flowing, and we'll also take a look at the official definition while you type out your own ideas. The Global Impact Investing Network defines gender lens investing as investment strategies applied to an allocation or to the entirety of an investment portfolio, which seek to examine gender dynamics to better inform investment decisions and/or intentionally and measurably address gender disparities. So I think a lot of the ideas that you shared with us in the chat were pretty close to this official definition. So really good answers from you guys. As the name gender lens investing makes clear, gender is a lens. It's a way of seeing that helps an investor to highlight opportunity, illuminate risk, and understand strategy in a more nuanced way. So how are investors using that gender lens to make investment decisions? Well, there are many different strategies. Some of the core strategies we see look specifically at what focus an investment strategy with the gender lens takes. But often we will see a combination or multiple or even all strategies used together to a varying degree. The most common strategy you might be familiar with is a focus on leadership, but other areas that we see investment strategies focusing on are employees, supply chains, products and services, and of course also the community. At the firm level, fund managers can drive the adoption of gender lens or gender smart investing by starting with within their own investment house. Fund managers can strengthen the gender diversity of their own team, for example, by leadership, setting clear targets, or building a respectful workplace culture, or making public commitments to gender diversity. The IFC has developed a framework that we link to in the slide, so you will find it in your handout, and that includes designing a gender-smart investment strategy, engaging, training, and rewarding people within the firm, enhancing and adapting investment processes and systems, and identifying and collaborating with partners and external stakeholders at the firm level. At the portfolio level, fund managers can adopt strategies in both origination and portfolio management. These strategies enable fund managers to allocate capital to companies that are committed to these 5 key areas on your screen. So women's representation and leadership as founders, co-founders, and in senior management, gender diverse and equitable workforce, a gender inclusive value chain, offering and designing products and services that consider the distinct needs of women, and ensuring that their operations do not harm women in their community. The good news is that the benefits of gender diversity has become more widely recognized. Investors' demand for gender-smart investment opportunities has increased considerably. This has led to an emergence of a variety of gender-focused financial products across asset classes. To give you a brief overview of the investment universe, let's take a look at how investments can be channeled towards gender equality and gender-smart investments. On the left-hand side here on your screen, we can see that there are a few buckets in terms of financial products that can be used to direct financial flows towards gender equality. This includes equity-based financial products, debt or fixed income financial products, then also funds which can be either debt or equity-based. On the right-hand side here, we can see that the investors accessing these financial products also vary. And we see both retail and individual investors, as well as institutional investors, for example, making use of the financing vehicles. This is important to note because different investors have different needs and expectations, which then leads to a diversity of products as well to meet these different needs. Let's look at what this looks like in practice now by diving a bit more into some case studies that can shed some light on the reality. The first example that we have here for you builds on what we discussed on Monday about climate and gender benefits that can coexist. This example comes from Gold Standard, which is an organization that was established in 2003, sorry, by the WWF and other international NGOs to ensure projects that reduce carbon emissions featured the highest level of environmental integrity and also contributed to sustainable development. This case study in particular looks at the Lango Safe Water project in Uganda. The Lango Safe Water project received the first ever gold standard gender responsive certification in 2020. And the project rehabilitates boreholes to provide clean water in rural Uganda. And as of August 2023, credits are available to be purchased on the Gold Standard marketplace. This offers purchasers offering purchasers the option to choose carbon credits from a project which has also assessed or which has been assessed to reduce gender inequality. The climate and social impact of this project includes, and you can see that here also on your screen, 50,000 tons of CO2 emission reductions per year, 40,000 individuals enjoying clean water access, reducing incidences of waterborne illnesses. And each household in that area gains almost 4 hours per week from reduced water collection needs, saving time mostly for women and young girls who are often the primary household person to collect water. That also leads to a reduced school absenteeism due to less exposure to waterborne disease and less time spent collecting water. But if we look even further into the gender equality impact of this project, the project reports that the local water resource committee is approaching a parity with 46% female and 54% male representation. It reported incidences of domestic violence related to water collection have dropped to 0 compared to 35% prior to the project start. And it reported 100% of the surveyed water users spent the time saved on domestic work as well as income generating activities and social and leisure activities. It's also important to note that gold standard when certifying projects for carbon credits have two levels of gender analysis. One is a mandatory level and the other one is a voluntary one. For the mandatory side, all projects must achieve a gender sensitivity status. And in addition, they have the option to become gender responsive, which requires a much deeper level of analysis and setting gender-related goals and targets. We have a few more case studies in your handout, and this one is on dual benefit bonds, gender smart, and Paul, who's with us today, will share more about how gender is being included as a benefit of social bonds. But you can read this case study as well as the next case study in your own study time. And I think there's one more example here on bonds, which you can review in your handout. And I think with that, I'm handing back to Landon to walk us through gender bonds.
Great, thanks, Lisa. So exactly, we'll have a deeper look at this type of bond, the gender bond, and what that can mean. So naturally, you might ask, what exactly are gender bonds? And to get us started, I want to introduce broadly where the focus of these bonds sit. Paul from Luxembourg Stock Exchange will give us much more details on this in a moment, but we'll just cover the basics for now. So as you can see here, gender-focused bonds are a subset of bonds within the green, social, and sustainability bond universe. Gender bonds are often not seen as a category of bonds themselves, like we see with green bonds, but increasingly we're seeing bonds have a gender focus, either by setting distinct KPIs related to gender or linked to projects that support or enhance gender equality. What I want to highlight here is we can also see a distinct overlapping with green bonds for climate and gender co-benefits, which we heard a bit about in our case studies from Lisa. If we take a look at the debt market, we can see here that the overall trend has been significant growth in sustainable finance through social bonds in the last 5 years. This data, which was taken again from the UNCTAD World Investment Report 2024, shows that the cumulative global issuance of sustainable bonds sat at $1.5 trillion in 2023. Although we see a bit of a decline since 2020, this was found to be in line with the broader bond market. So it's clear that social and mixed sustainability bonds remain on a long-term growth trajectory with essentially a fourfold increase in annual issuance from 2018 to 2023. And while some of you may be likely with green bonds, or most of you may be likely familiar with them, it's important to note that specifically since 2020, we've seen growth in social bonds and mixed sustainability bonds, which includes bonds with gender-related objectives. There's also a number of guidelines to help us determine what actually qualifies as a gender bond, since it's not always so clear. Importantly, these guidelines are useful whether we're the issuer of such a bond or an investor looking at investing in bonds that contribute to real gender equality impacts. You can see two examples here on the screen, the social bond principles from ICMA, which provides guidelines for issuing social bonds, and then the Climate Bonds Initiative Social and Sustainability Bond Database methodology. What I think is most important about these guidelines is that they help to build trust in the market and ensure that social bonds are designed to achieve their intended positive outcome. It's not enough to just call something a gender-focused bond or market it as such. we need to also understand the intended impact and whether or not that impact is being achieved. So with that brief introduction on the topic, we'll now have a bit more of a look at this in practice with our guest speaker today, and we're very happy to have Paul Shaheen with us. So Paul, I'll turn it over to you now. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Landon and Lisa. Also, I'm very glad being here again with you. And hi to everyone who has joined this session. So my name is Paul Shaheen, and I'm a Sustainable Finance Manager at the Luxembourg Stock Exchange. And I'm here today actually to speak to you a little bit more into details about this very interesting topic that Landon has introduced, which is the gender-focused bonds or gender bonds in general, to make it simple for everyone. I suppose that I should share some slides, unless maybe you will show them, Landon. If it's me, it's fine. Just give me the right.
Yes, I had just given you slide control, so let me know if you're able to do so.
It should be fine. Please let me know if you can see my slides.
Yep, all
I
good.
think it's the case. Perfect. So as Landon actually said, I don't know if it was clear for all of you actually, that we do not have in the sustainable debt instrument market dedicated label or instrument called a gender bond, similar to the green, the social, the sustainability, and sustainability linked bonds. And I'm talking here, and I'm quite sure, I hope that you already know a little bit about these instruments. I know that in Pakistan there have been a couple of issuances for green bonds, for instance, and I've just learned now from the chat that maybe a foundation has issued some gender bonds too. So I'm quite sure, comfortable that you know what we mean by green, social sustainability, and sustainability linked bonds. So the gender focused bonds actually are not, as I said, an official label or instrument that has its own principles or standards similar to the other ones that I've just mentioned. The need in the market actually to highlight the existence of an instrument that focuses on gender equality matters started around 2020, as Landon mentioned. And the idea with all of these instruments, by the way, as you can imagine, is to provide money actually to finance projects that have some impact. And in the case of the gender bonds, that will have some gender equality impact, as you can imagine. So here we are talking about financing tools rather than maybe some strategies. So what are the tools that you will put in place to have the funds needed to finance your gender equality initiatives or gender equality projects? So when everyone started to think about how to maybe provide more finance for gender equality, it was very logical actually to think about the existing tools that we have in the capital markets. And definitely bonds came first, actually, thanks to the success that green bonds have proved in the market recently. And there was this discussion about how we can use bonds, well, in this case, thematic bonds, to finance, to provide money to gender equality. And since there was no dedicated, let's say, principles or standards for potential issuers of bonds on how to issue what could be called a gender-focused bonds, some entities around the table, like IFC, UN Women, and the International Capital Market Association, said, okay, we're not going to create a new tool or a new label in the market, but we can use what we already have, like the social bonds and the sustainability bonds and the sustainability linked bonds, and to some extent also, as Landon mentioned, the green bonds, where you can have some mixed impact. So we can use what we already have in the market to finance gender equality. What we can provide is this kind of guidelines. And this is what you can see on the slides today. In 2021, actually, these three entities provided this document, which provides some guidelines to both issuers and investors who will invest in the bonds, who will buy the bonds, at the end to provide some clarity on how to use those bonds in general to finance gender equality. I highly recommend you to have a look at it because it's one of the first documents that has put in place maybe some common understanding about the use of the thematic bonds in order to finance gender equality. Now, on our side at the Luxembourg Stock Exchange, and maybe some of you have heard about the Luxembourg Stock Exchange and its positioning in the sustainable debt instrument market, being the stock exchange #1 that lists those instruments from all around the world, and having a good stock actually of them being social sustainability and sustainability linked bonds, we said, okay, maybe we can actually contribute to this momentum around gender equality by highlighting how much gender-focused bonds we have listed on our own markets. And for that sake, actually, we went into identify how we at the Luxembourg Stock Exchange, we can call, or we might call, an instrument a gender-focused bonds. And as you know, in the market, we have these two types of instrument, the use of proceeds instrument and the non-use of proceeds instrument. So we took the use of proceeds instrument, the green social sustainability bonds, and we said, okay, if the issuer of this instrument has said very clearly in their documentation of issuance that the bond's proceeds definitely will go to contribute to gender equality and to finance SDG #5, then we can, at the Luxembourg Stock Exchange, on a very individual basis, we can highlight, we can tag that instrument as a gender-focused bond. So this instrument will be a social or a sustainability bond, or sometimes green bonds, with a gender focused in it. So maybe 100% of the proceeds will go to finance gender equality, like, you know, women entrepreneurship projects, or maybe less than 100% will go to women-related or gender equality-related, let's put it like this, while the remaining ones will go to pure other social projects. So in both cases, we can identify this instrument on our markets as a gender-focused bond. But we did not stop at what the issuers might like claim at issuance, so at pre-issuance in their framework. But we went even further to make sure that at the reporting, so post-issuance, when those issuers start reporting on the impact of those bonds, investments in projects, there is indeed a contribution to SDG #5 or to gender equality in general. So to make sure that the claims have been made like true after the issuance. And if this is the case, then we can confirm that this instrument that has been issued as a social or sustainability or green bond, we can tag it on our markets as a gender-focused bond. Now, the other type of instrument that we have in the market, which is the sustainability-linked bonds, is non-use of proceed instrument, as you know. So how this instrument can be qualified as gender-focused bonds? Well, we followed a similar reasoning. As you know, the sustainability-linked bonds are instruments where the issuers should have put in place some targets to achieve, some sustainability targets to achieve. And as you can imagine, in this case, the sustainability target should be gender-related in order for the SLB to be qualified under the gender-focused tag that we have on our markets. So we went back to the list of SLBs that we list on our markets, and we identified those ones who claim in their documentation again that one of their sustainability targets and one of the key performance indicators that they will be monitoring after the issuance is related to SDG #5, is related to gender equality. And in this case, we could tag this instrument on our market as a gender-focused bond. Now, this was a pure, let's say, Luxembourg Stock Exchange initiative, actually, to provide an extra tagging on our markets on the top of the green social sustainability and sustainability linked tag, in order to shade more light on the existence of those instruments, even if they are not like, officially recognized in the market, similar to the other ones, and also to show the advantages for issuers and for investors. So to promote the use of those instruments to finance gender equality. That was the idea or the aim from this work that we have done on the Luxembourg Stock Exchange. And maybe as Lisa and Landon mentioned, also I brought with me today maybe 2 case studies to highlight more in a more practical way what we mean when we speak about a use of proceeds gender-focused bond and an SLB gender-focused bond. The first case study comes from a financial institution. It is NMB Bank in Tanzania, who was the very first, let's say, financial institution in Africa actually to issue a 100% gender-focused bond, meaning a social bond that used 100% of the proceeds for gender equality and woman-owned businesses. We have a very nice video that we would like to show you here about this case study. Landon, would it be possible actually to show the video from your side, or should I do it?
If you have it handy, Paul, that would be great. If not, I'll play it just because I'm having some sound issues with my device.
Yeah, I don't have it handy to be honest, but I can look for it. Maybe if you, let's try from your side. If it doesn't work, I can do it too. I will stop sharing.
Okay, no problem. One moment.
Thank you.
One second here, folks. We'll get that video started for you in just a moment.
It's a commercial bank, universal commercial bank, based in Tanzania, East Africa, that serves retail clients, corporate clients, and government. I'm the treasurer for the bank, so main responsibility really is around mobilizing funds, so liquidity management, foreign exchange risk management, interest risk management, and coordination, just to make sure that there's balance sheet optimization and as well as capital allocation. So our gender bond really is a use of proceeds bond, that we issued in line with the international capital markets principles under the social bonds framework that allows us to raise money from the public and finance, women-owned businesses or enterprises that are dominantly owned by women, or businesses whose products and services actually eventually, service the female. Women proposition is a very important segment for our bank. And yes, we had a very fantastic proposition for women savings, but we realized on the financing side, we need to do something to mobilize additional funding to support growth for women-owned businesses. So we felt it was necessary for us, because if a strategic fit for us is really to diversify portfolio. And given the risk profile of women as far as loans concerned, we realized that the non-performing loans ratio is actually lower than that of the male counterparts. Yeah, so the projects we tend to finance, or that we're financing with this, are predominantly female-owned enterprises, and it cuts across different sectors, be it renewable energy, agriculture, health, education, and manufacturing as well. Obviously, it will be interesting that we measure the number of new loans that are issued to MSCs, so micro to medium and small enterprises women. But also it will be interesting for us, and we're doing that, to measure what impact that is having on their social and economic life. So how many jobs are created? You know, are they growing? Are they not? Are they expanding their businesses? You know, I think those kind of metrics are very important and is part of our KPIs in ensuring that these funds actually put the right use. Indeed, we've issued other types of bonds, retail bonds, corporate bonds. The difference with this gender bond is that the use of proceeds requires a lot of transparency. Investors require that you go back to them to tell them, you know, how these funds have been used. But in addition to that, it has to go in line with, you know, the social bond principles and in line with the international capital markets, you know, principle on social bonds. You know, as opposed to the other bonds that you could simply raise and finance all manner of activities, you know, without accountability to the investors. This requires significant accountability and transparency as far as investors are concerned. It was very well received by investors, domestic investors, and as well as international investors. As a matter of fact, it got 197% oversubscription. So we had significant appetite seeing from international financiers, but as well as domestic retail and corporate investors. I think one obvious one was the misconception, you know, that you have a gender bond in the market, you know, financing women, and therefore there's a perception that perhaps the bond subscribers were meant to be female, you know, and so it requires a lot of efforts, marketing efforts to ensure that the male counterparts actually understood that it's not just for female, but they could also invest to help advance female. You know, so that was a key challenge for us. But the other one is obviously data quality, especially in some of these emerging markets, still remains to be an issue. You know, so you need to have to capture the right data at onboarding stage becomes very important because you really get to realize how critical that is when you're doing your impact measurement and reporting. But the other aspect is the opportunities are still huge. The financing gap for female generally is still quite huge, and that is why. And that is why there's need for us perhaps also consider scaling up, you know, such insurances, you know, going forward. Yes, just related to the previous question. So we realize we need to do more still, you know, so certainly we need to raise more funding, you know, be it domestically, be it partnering with DFIs or developing financial institutions to just make sure that we can scale up, you know, that portfolio. The need is there. I think we need to answer a very critical question of affordability, which keeps coming up, and hopefully using things like guarantee schemes from some of these development financial institutions will enable us actually affordably extend credit to female entrepreneurs. I think critical for me, again, back to what I've said, is data, you know, at the onboarding stage. You need to get it right. But at the same time, just ensuring that indeed you have a pipeline that's sufficient enough to be covered whatever amount of bonds you want to raise, because ultimately investors demand, you know, that level of transparency and accountability to see that these bonds are actually put to the intended use.
Yeah, thank you, Landon, for sharing the video. I hope it was quite clear in terms of sounding for everyone. It was the case for me, and I didn't see any question in the chat. So as we have seen, this is a very concrete case study about how a bank raised fund through thematic bond, social bond, dedicating 100% of the proceeds to gender equality projects. So this bond was and is qualified as a gender-focused bond according to this small methodology that we have put in place. And the bond is, by the way, listed or double listed also locally and on the Luxembourg Stock Exchange, and benefits from this new tag that we created on our market as a gender-focused bond. Maybe just to highlight 2 or 3 points that the gentleman mentioned in the video for the interest of everyone, the challenges that he has spoken about related to the data availability and how the issuer should be capable since very early stage to ensure that the metrics that they have put in place to show the impact are feasible actually to be collected, easy to be collected, and meaningful at the same time, of course, in order not to be struggling in showing the impact post-issuance. The oversubscription is something very interesting because it shows also how much the market is looking to invest in these innovative, let's put it like this, instruments coming also from non-traditional issuers like NMB, like Tanzania. The context is completely like different, and this is very, very demanded in the market. This is what we see these days. So this is a very concrete, as I said, case study on a use of proceed gender-focused bonds. And the other case study without an interview or a video this time is, a case study is on an SLB, a sustainability-linked bond that is also qualified as a gender-focused. And this time it comes from a corporate called EQT, Equity AB Group, based in Stockholm in Europe. And this entity actually raised a sustainability-linked bond in the market. And they have put themselves an objective, a sustainability target that has to do with like gender equality. Actually, they have put in place two sustainability targets. The first one is to have the share of women investment advisory in the professionals in the entity to go up to 28% by 2026 compared to maybe 21% in 2020. And they wanted also to increase the number of women independent members at the board to reach 36% by 2026 in comparison to 21% in 2022. So in this case, or in the case of this entity, they said, okay, maybe we need to invest in new recruitments, in a new structure, and we need to attract maybe new resources in order to reach those objectives. So they increased, or they raised the funds actually to meet those needs through an SLB. Here again, I would like to show maybe 2 points. The first one, again, the investors' reaction. Also here, there was an overbooking or oversubscription of this instrument, which reflects again the demand in the market for this kind of not only an instrument but also focusing on gender bonds. And the other maybe point that I would like to mention is the materiality of the targets that this entity has put in place, because one of the main issue, if we put it like this, that we have with the sustainability linked bonds is how material and how ambitious your targets are. And in the case of this entity, the targets were proved material as per the external reviewer who provided also an evaluation of this issuance to the issuer. So as you can see, financial instruments such as bonds, and in our case, thematic bonds or sustainable bonds, are here to also contribute to gender equality. And now you have seen these two case studies. I will stop here. If you would like to know more about this subject, definitely stay in touch with the UNSSE. But if you'd like also to be in touch with us at the Luxembourg Stock Exchange, don't hesitate to reach out to us, and we will be happy to share with you extra information. You can already find some information on our website because we have put in place dedicated studies on gender bonds. You can look at it. It's publicly available. Thank you so much. Thank you, Landon. Thank you, Lisa. And definitely, as always, happy to be with you.
Great. Thank you so much, Paul, for that great insight and some case studies and putting this into practice, which are always very helpful. So with that, we'll wrap up this unit and talk a bit about how we can see gender equality themed products being promoted in the market more generally. At the SEC, we did an assessment of how exchanges are working with their markets to enhance gender equality as part of our guidance for exchanges on this topic. And we found that there's two main ways that markets are promoting gender equality. That is through the promotion of participation and the promotion of impact. let's go through both of those briefly, and then we'll get to a 5-minute break. First, natural question, what do we mean by promoting participation in markets? Well, on both the supply side and the buy side, we're seeing the application of a gender lens in global markets to access unserved segments of the market. While on the sell side, we see markets promoting and supporting women-led businesses or female entrepreneurs. For example, Sourcing to Equal is an IFC-led initiative in partnership with the Women Entrepreneurs Finance Initiative in Norway that aims to connect 5,000 women entrepreneurs to new markets via corporate procurement. On the buy side, we can see the investment in and support of women traders. This relates back to when we discussed earlier the different gender lens investment strategies as being both not just at the portfolio level, but also within the investment firm. This is because it has been well documented that all male investment teams indeed invest in fewer women-led businesses. One example of this type of promotion is an annual woman-focused investment summit run by the Johannesburg Stock Exchange called the JSE She Invest Summit. In addition to providing a networking opportunity, this event also covers a variety of topics, including basic finance and investment literacy, as well as showcasing different ways in which women can invest in the market. Now, on the flip side, with promoting impact, so in addition to promoting the participation, we also saw in our study that exchanges and markets promote financial products and companies based on their impact or their ability to actually improve gender equality either within an organization or in society more broadly. Here we're seeing markets raising awareness of financial products and promoting listed products through awards or incentives with the objective of shining a spotlight on those that are having a positive impact. We also see markets creating segments or indices that aim to make it easier to find and invest in those high impact stocks or financial products. It's also important to note that one index can vary from the next. You can see here, as we heard already, in order to truly capture the holistic picture, which we know from our session on Monday is important, we need to look at this topic from many different perspectives. So, for example, if these two indices were only collecting data on women on boards, this would, of course, only let us know one aspect of gender equality within a company or an index. In some instances, this is what we want to know, but if we're investing with the objective of either directing capital towards companies that enhance gender equality related goals in society and their companies, or because we understand the value of enhanced gender equality, like we discussed earlier, then we'd want much more breadth of data. However, what you will notice is that the categories can be and often are quite similar. You can use those categories to make sure that you're collecting broad enough data. And as we learned last time, sometimes we can think we're solving a problem or improving and advancing gender equality, but we're actually making it worse or not improving it at all. The best way to prevent that is to thoroughly understand what's happening in your organization. So with that, let's do a quick Zoom poll. The poll on your screen will give you a few options. So I'll launch that poll now. So if you could let us know which you think are reasons that investors are investing more and more funds in gender lens investment. So why are investors looking for gender-related opportunities? What do you think? And it can be multiple choice. You can input multiple answers. So it could be higher financial performance, untapped markets, enhancing climate-related impacts of investment, to prevent men from accessing leadership positions, to diversify their portfolios, and to manage gender-related risks. So as I said, you can answer one or more, however many you think are correct. Okay, gonna end the poll now and share the results. So great. All except for the fourth answer are correct here. So very well done, everyone. While gender-based investing can often be seen as a zero-sum game, preventing men from moving forward so that women can instead move forward, gender lens investing is not meant at all for this. And if that's the outcome, then it's being done wrong. With that, we're roughly at our halfway point in our session. Please take a moment to grab a cup of tea, take a quick stretch, and we'll start back up again as soon as the timer finishes in 5 minutes from now. We'll see you again soon.
All right, everyone. As you come back from your break, maybe it's time to return to your screens. Hope you managed to grab a glass of water or a coffee. Landon, I can't seem to be able to click the slides forward. There we go. Thanks. I hope it was me, but in case it was you, thanks for switching on. Now that we've had a look at some of the financial instruments available to promote gender equality, let's have a look at how an organization can communicate their performance on gender equality, which could be one means of accessing these gender-specific financing mechanisms. However, it's not only important for communicating your impact with investors, but also internal communication is key to ensure that cultural change that we repeated so many times on Monday as a necessary aspect of performance actually takes place. And yeah, I can click slides, great. So our final unit of this training has two main sections. We'll talk both about communication and transparency within an organization amongst its employees, as well as with external stakeholders. To start with, let's look at how you can manage effectively internal communications. While there are many methods used to enhance transparency within an organization, what we want to highlight today is the Gender Equality Action Plan as a tool for communicating with internal stakeholders. To guide us on this, our colleague from UN Women, Fatima, will discuss how the webs can be used in action for this purpose. And Fatima, I think you might also be able to operate the slides. If not, let us know and I'll click further. But Fatima, please take us through this.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. So it's great seeing all of you again and some new people who have joined us today. Welcome. So in this session, I will present a way to use the webs to advance gender equality and women's empowerment through developing an effective gender action plan, which leads a company's gender equality journey by being communicative and transparent. Lisa, I'll be needing your help in the slides. So, yeah. So the gender action plan is kind of a roadmap for implementing gender equality and women's empowerment. It helps companies embed gender equality into its business model and contains a collation of goals, indicators, and targets, which are very concise and meaningful. So as a result, the company will be more effectively and successfully advancing gender equality and women's empowerment. So the basic idea of a gender action plan is that a company corrects its past and present forms of inequality and prevents any future recurrence of discrimination and biases within the company, and also ensures that all company strategies, policies, programs, and activities are gender responsive and transformative. Also to develop or deepen the understanding of gender equality among all stakeholders within and outside the organization, and as well as to track the progress in real time to assess where they stand on gender equality. So the gender action plan must include very clear and concise goals and targets. For that, you need to take into consideration the findings from the surveys and interviews with the key stakeholders, as well as the HR data that is available within the company. And you also need to be considering any risks, challenges, and opportunities that may incur during the implementation process of the gender action plan. And you also need to be including any concrete and measurable actions. But the question is that how do you create an effective gender action plan? Next slide, please. So here are some of the steps to build a gender action plan. So first thing is to set clear goals. For that, you have to identify the objectives that align with your company's vision using the Web 7 principles as a guide. Since in the previous session, I did mention that the WEB's framework, it serves as, the WEB's principle basically serves as a guiding framework for all the companies at workplace, marketplace, and at the community level. And then you will be developing activities. For that, you will be planning concrete measures and actions to achieve your goals. And there are WEB's resources that are available on the website, which offers step-by-step guidance for this stage. Then you'll be establishing a baseline. For that, you will be gathering data to assess your starting point for an inclusive workplace, review current recruitment policies, that are the job titles gender neutral, and does the language avoid gender bias. And for inclusive supply chain, you can check your procurement policies. Do you, if you do prioritize women-owned or gender responsive businesses? And then you'll be setting targets and timelines. So for that, you have to differentiate between broad goals and specific targets. A goal basically defines the objective, while a target is a measurable indicator. So for example, if your goal is to create an inclusive workplace, a target could be 40% of women representation in the senior management. If focusing on the supply chain, so you need to be setting a target to procure from a specific number of gender responsive companies, aiming for ambitious yet achievable targets within a set time frame. And the last step is to assign accountability. For that, you can appoint a responsible owner to monitor the progress and report on the outcomes. Next slide, please. So here are some key considerations when setting the goals. So first, you need to see if the goal is specific and if it's measurable. For that, you need to make sure that your goals have clear and measurable outcomes. And then if you have to see if the goal is attainable. So for that, you will be evaluating if the goal is realistically achievable given your resources and constraints. So in the relevance to your organization, you have to see that how important is the goal to your organization or company. You have to assess the relevance according to internal stakeholders, especially middle management. So from experience across different countries, there's often a gap between senior and the middle management priorities. And then you have to set a timeline for achievement to achieve your goals. For that, you need to set a clear timeline for reaching the goal. Consult relevant stakeholders through surveys, group meetings, and consultations. So here are some recommendations or recommended actions to do so. For that, you need to secure CEO's commitment and leadership. And then you can form a diverse team to drive gender equality within your company. And then integrate gender equality into your business model. And then align the goal with your company's value proposition and vision. Also, develop targeted questions for stakeholders' consultations to identify any gaps and opportunities. And finally, to set deadlines to finalize and present the action plan to the CEO and the executive team. Next slide, please. So when the WEB's plan is in action, the internal consultation and communication is the key. So once your gender action plan is finalized, regular communication with employees and stakeholders is very essential. You need to ensure everyone is aware of the action plan, the related activities, and the progress that is being made. You should also gather on your progress and share updates through internal and external channels, such as your annual corporate and sustainability reports. So to set effective target indicators, since I've mentioned before as well that there are a lot of resources available on the webs.org website. So you can use the WEB's transparency and accountability framework, which offers over 7 indicators tailored to your goals and are aligned to the 7 principles. And it contains essential and complementary indicators from where you can pick and choose, and eliminating the need to create new ones from scratch. So it would be great if you could go and see the transparency and accountability framework. It will also guide you well in picking and choosing the indicators for your plan. So the content presented today is from the WEB's learning module on creating a gender action plan. So you can access this module and additional resources, including the action plan template, at www.webs.org/learn. I can put that link in the chat box for your reference as well. Thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to seeing the impact your companies will make. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Fatima, for taking us through internal communications around gender equality. And thank you to UN Women as well for your support of our training. So now that we have covered communicating to internal stakeholders, let's move on to communicating to external stakeholders. And for this to kick off, let's do a quick poll to see how your organizations are currently disclosing gender-related information, if you're disclosing anything at all. And as promised in the chat, we'll increase the poll time a little bit, but if you can see the questions on your screen or the question on your screen right now, feel free to click. You can choose multiple of the options that we provide here for you. As you fill this in, let us know in the chat, what do you think determines where gender-related information should appear? And I think Landon just finished the poll, and the second poll should appear on your screen right now. Does your company disclose gender-related information through one or more of one of these mechanisms: CSR, ESG, sustainability report, annual financial report, gender pay gap report, all of the above, none of the above? I'm not sure. All the answers are possible. You can also choose multiple. And then hopefully, once you all had a chance to respond, we'll see the answers on the screen. As I said earlier, if you have already done the poll, let us know in the chat what you think determines where gender-related information should appear. What factors are you looking for to decide if, for example, information should appear in your annual financial reporting package, perhaps using the ISSB's new IFRS sustainability disclosure standards, or instead in the sustainability report using maybe the GRI standards? So let us know in the chat what you think. And maybe Landon, I think most people might have had a chance to click through this and read the questions, so maybe we can, perfect. Here we can see the results, and we can see a lot of you a lot of you disclose information in your annual financial report. That's great. Sustainability report comes second. Gender pay gap report, 24% of you are disclosing information there. That's really good. And I think we might also see, oh, do we see the results of the second? That's all right. Today is not the poll day. So let's continue. Who do we or who you communicate with defines where you report and what standards you will use. So to report to investors, for example, the primary location for your gender-related disclosures will be in your annual report, and a lot of you have also clicked that option. The International Sustainability Standards Board has consolidated the major investor-orientated sustainability disclosure standards, And for reporting to other stakeholders, you might use the GRI standards, which are widely used by organizations globally. Together, and you can see that here on the slide, together these form a holistic reporting package to a wide range of stakeholders. In terms of the content for each type of audience for investors, you might focus your disclosure on financially material risk and opportunities related to gender equality, as well as any other information that can help investors on their investment decisions and engagement within a company. As I said, this goes into your annual report alongside your financial statements and other disclosures. To communicate to a broader stakeholder group, you would report more about the impact of your business on the environment, society, and economy at large, as this will be more in line with what they want to know. At the same time, this information will also be used to will also be useful to some of your investors, and it will support the information you reported in your annual financial report. To report to your investors in your annual financial report, the IFRS sustainability disclosure standards require your organization to disclose 4 broad areas, which you may already recognize if you're familiar with the recommendation of the TCFD or the Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosures. The ISSB S1 standard requires an entity to disclose information about all sustainability-related risks and opportunities that could reasonably be expected to affect an entity's cash flows, its access to finance, or cost of capital over the short, medium, and long term. While the ISSB doesn't yet provide specific metrics or disclosure requirements on gender equality, it does highlight that companies should make use of the SASB standards and the GRI standards to identify appropriate disclosures for sustainability-related risks and opportunities. Looking at multi-stakeholder reporting, we went through the GRI standards and identified those that most directly address gender equality to help you to know where to find guidance on gender equality disclosures for your sustainability reports. Gender-related disclosures are part of disclosures on employees, governance structure and composition, policy commitments, and approach to stakeholder engagement. And you can see the references to the particular sections of the GRI2 standard on the slide here, where you will be able to find more information on specifically these kind of disclosures that are related to gender. So while GRI is currently under a transition to a new modular standards, we can also take some guidelines from the previous 2016 standards. Although the sectoral and topical standards are still being updated, they still hold and have a lot of value to them. If you look at the reporting requirements for both GRI 405, which is the diversity and equality, diversity and equal opportunity, and GRI 406 on non-discrimination, we see a few additional guidelines on disclosure of gender-related information. In both of these guidelines, it's recommended that the reporting organization should report its management approach for diversity and equal opportunity using GRI 103 management approach. GRI 200-1 also requires you to disclose ratios of standard entry-level wage by gender compared to local minimum wage. So now that we've looked at the standards, we have a few real-world examples to see what disclosure looks like in practice, disclosure for external stakeholders. These examples are just excerpts from actual annual reports. So they only present a piece of a complete picture. These are examples of current practices, and we do not pass judgment on them as to whether or not they are good or bad practices. First, let's look at this governance disclosure from the annual report of Airtel, a Nigerian telecommunication company. In line with the IFRS sustainability disclosure standards require, they reported about the processes they use to monitor, manage, and oversee their sustainability-related performance. For example, they noted that the non-financial performance KPIs linked to their sustainability strategy include gender diversity. They also note that these KPIs are linked to the board's payment, which of course is a strong incentive to take this quite seriously. Strategy disclosures aim to help the reader of your report to understand your strategy for managing sustainability-related risks and opportunities. Here we see the annual report of Astra International, an Indonesian conglomerate. Astra outlines the importance of the diversity of its employees to its success. Importantly, this statement is then backed up by a roadmap and other actions to manage the opportunity they see through a gender diverse workforce. In other parts of the report, Astra goes into further details about how the company is implementing this, for example, through programs which make the workplace more suitable to women, and through a women development program which prepares women leaders for higher positions. Interestingly, in the report, they say the human capital development in 2022 covers three focus areas, which are to build an agile organization, develop passionate and energetic leaders so as to be able to navigate the organization and facing business challenges, as well as carrying out the culture of continuous improvement and innovation to maintain Astra's relevancy in the era of disruption. In other words, Astra International states here that a more diverse and gender equal business can help to maintain a company's relevancy in an area of disruption. So this is a very interesting insight into their strategy approach to gender equality. For an example on risk management disclosures, let's have a look at Coca-Cola HBC's annual report. As a reminder, risk management disclosures are intended to help the reader of the report to understand your processes to identify, assess, prioritize, and monitor sustainability-related risks and opportunities. And Coca-Cola HBC provided an overview of how they go about identifying material risks, saying that to assess in what impacts we use our annual materiality survey, but also investor-driven frameworks such as SASB, insights from regular calls with investors, our risk management process, including climate scenario analysis and input from our markets and business units. They also assess their outward impacts in this matrix, which you can see here in the horizontal axis. And if it's a little bit difficult to see here on the screen, you can also refer back to your handout. We have the same slide in there too. Here we see, here we see a disclosure example on reporting gender-related metrics and targets used by Cemex, a Mexican multinational cement company. Cemex also stated in its annual report that it is a signatory of the UN WEPs and the UN Global Compact's target gender equality. In this example, we see Cemex updating on the progress made towards gender equality in its workforce. Cemex is in an industry that has been traditionally male-dominated, and therefore it's starting from a lower percentage of women than perhaps a company from another industry. This example does, however, show that any business can take action towards gender equality, which is, I think, a really good example here. Cemex has also set a new goal to increase the representation of women in senior management positions. It's specified its base year as 2022, its target of 30%, and the target year, so the target when the 30% women in senior management should be achieved, as 2030. Later on in the report, they also report metrics such as percentage of workforce by gender, percentage of female employees by position, and women to men payment ratio by region. So in addition to the standards we just discussed, there are also additional organizations that you can look for more guidance on this topic. And this is something the UNSSE will be releasing a report on soon. So you can also check out the SSE's website and our publication page for that report in the future. There are also guiding principles for you to consider, such as the UN Charter on Human Rights, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs, or of course the WEBs, which we've discussed just a while ago. In addition, it's also important to know what disclosures are required for your organization by law in your jurisdictions. Beyond this, there are also a number of rankings or benchmarks to consider, such as those of the World Benchmarking Alliance. There are also a number of indices and rating agencies that take into account the social performance of companies, such as the Bloomberg Gender Equality Index, which we have heard about in the last session. And you can also check out, if you've missed that part, you can check out the recording on our website. Finally, there are management standards that your organization may wish to adopt, which can help enhance your organization's performance on gender. Have a look, for example, at the ISO 26000 guidance on social responsibility, and gender equality is also present in many other ISO standards. There are also SDG impact standards, which are management practice standards designed to guide businesses and investors to embed sustainability into their decision-making approach. So this provides an overview of some of the disclosure guidelines you can consider, but previously we also talked about standards, certifications that can be used to develop your organization's gender equality practices and disclosures. And we are happy to have with us now Nina Pearson from the EDGE Certified Foundation to tell us a little bit more about that. And Nina, I think I might be able to help you with the slides in case you don't have slide control, but thanks for joining us, Nina.
Thank you for having me. I'll see if I can share my screen. Okay.
Great, we can see your screen.
Okay. Perfect. Hello, everyone. I'm Nina, and I'm the Communications Specialist at the EDGE Certified Foundation. And it's a pleasure to be able to introduce you now to EDGE certification. So I'll start with a quick introduction, and then I'll take you through how EDGE certification works, what we assess, and how our certification helps organizations move from intention to impact. But before I get into that, just a few quick notes. So EDGE is a voluntary sustainability standard that focuses on achieving gender equity in the workplace and better gender balance at all levels of the organization. So it's important to note that we're not a disclosure standard. We just talked about GRI and SASB. We're not that. We're a measure of actual performance, and our role is to help organizations understand where they stand today, where the gaps are, and how to build a focused, achievable action plan towards greater equity. So what sets us apart is the depth of our assessment and also the independent third-party audit that also underpins our certification. And also relevant to note about our ecosystem, just to briefly mention how we work. So the EDGE Certified Foundation is the methodology, is the guardian behind the methodology, but we work with EDGE Strategy, and EDGE Strategy works with the organizations. So they prepare the organizations to become ready for EDGE certification through the use of its software solution, which is called EDGE Empower. EDGE Strategy is also able to license the use of the EDGE Empower software to licensing partners. And I think then it's also relevant to note that they have an agreement in place with the IFC. So IFC is licensed to use Edge Empower and work with organizations to prepare them for Edge certification. Okay, so moving on to the methodology. So the Edge standards and certification system is built on 4 foundational pillars that define success in gender and intersectional equity. The first pillar is representation. So we look at representation across different types of jobs and different levels of responsibility. The second pillar is pay equity. The third is effectiveness of policies and practices. So we are looking that an organisation has a solid framework of policies and practices ensuring equitable career flows when it comes to 5 focus areas. And those 5 focus areas are pay, recruitment and promotion, leadership development, training and mentoring, flexible working, and organisational culture. And the final pillar is an inclusion pillar, and it's about understanding how inclusive the culture of the organisation is, as reflected in employees' experience in terms of their career development opportunities within the organisation. So for the assessment, we look at 3 sources of information. So 3 sources of information are used to evaluate an organisation's own workforce. So these are organisational statistics, looking at HR data from across the organisation for a 12-month reference period. Then we look at policies and practices that the organisation has in place during the same reference period. And we look at the experience of employees. So this is captured through an employee survey undertaken close to the end of the reference period. So we use these 3 sources of information to triangulate them and look at gender and intersectional equity from 3 different angles. This triangulated approach helps to identify if these sources are aligned or if and where there are gaps between what a company says it does and how those actions are actually experienced across different groups. So it gives a depth of insight that helps organizations move beyond assumptions that they may have about their workforce and design targeted and effective solutions. So Edge certification has 3 levels of achievement. So we use a tiered system, which means organizations at different stages of progress can take part. There are no barriers to entry. So any organisation that commits to the process will be assessed. And the goal is to recognise where you are today and to provide an action plan for making further progress over time. So very quickly on the screen, you can see the first level is called Edge Assess, and this is all about recognising commitment. The second level, Edge Move, showcases progress in workplace gender equity. So at the Edge Move level, the organisation has reached the Edge standards in some, but not all, of the assessed areas. And finally, Edge Lead is the highest Edge certification level, showing that the organisation meets every single one of the Edge standards across the 4 pillars of the methodology that I introduced 2 slides ago. And I have also been talking about intersectional equity. So organisations can be certified Edge Plus, and that is our gender and intersectional equity standard. So this is in addition to one of 3 levels of certification. It's an add-on and enables organisations to deepen their understanding of gender-related matters by then analysing the intersectionality of gender and other aspects of diversity. So now we have 2 case studies which demonstrate the impact of working with the Edge standards. These are real cases, but we're withholding the client names. But on the left of the slide, you can see it's an organisation. The first case is an organisation from the energy industry with a large workforce dominated by men. So we've got the challenge in the middle of the screen. The workforce is dominated by men. And we can also see that they've been certified 3 times now. So moving to the results graphs on the right side, they're a bit small, but I hope you can see. we can see that when they were first assessed in 2020, they didn't meet the EDGE threshold for gender representation at any management level. So as part of the EDGE certification process, organizations create an action plan. And for this company, their primary focus became improving representation over the next years. So with a clear action plan in place, they were able to significantly strengthen the gender balance within their management levels. So we can see that for junior management and upper management, they actually reached the minimum required level of 30% according to the EDGE standards. Shifting representation in such a short time frame isn't easy, but their progress is a strong example of what committed, dedicated action with regard to pay equity, recruitment and promotion of female talent, as well as leadership development and training and mentorship can achieve. The process diagram on the slide in the middle down the bottom is just referring to the process using the EDGE Empower software. So moving on to the second case, it involves a slightly smaller company in the financial services sector, which has now been EDGE certified twice. When they were first assessed, their policies and practices, particularly around recruitment and promotion and leadership development and mentoring and training were in place, but likely too high level or generic to achieve real change in the organization. So through a more targeted and practical action plan, closely aligned with their overall business strategy, we were talking about this before, they were able to strengthen these areas significantly. And as a result, upon recertification, they achieved the EDGE standard across all aspects of policy and practice upon recertification. So those are two examples of the impact of working with the EDGE standard. Here you can see our logo circle. You might see some familiar names. We actually have NMB Bank from Tanzania, which we saw in the video before, and CEMEX as well as certified organizations. And we have organizations from all types of sectors and regions, listed companies, international organizations, and others. So they're all assessed against the same standard, and there are different flexible pathways to reach the different certification levels. Any organization is eligible for EDGE certification so long as it has over 100 employees. So we're looking at large organizations. And I was just working on our annual report, and if I'm not mistaken, the Asia Pacific region is our second largest region with the most EDGE certificates after Europe. So we do currently have one certified organization in Pakistan, and they worked with the IFC to become EDGE certified. So that's it from my side. Thank you for listening. And if you don't already, please do follow us on LinkedIn at EDGE Certification, or visit our EDGE Cert website where we post certification announcements, a current list of certified organizations and articles and research all related to workplace fairness and gender and intersectional equity. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Nina, for that fantastic overview of EDGE. Definitely encourage everyone to go check out our EDGE certification. And Nina, we're just a couple minutes ahead of time. So just a quick question to you to put you a bit on the spot. But I'm curious, it's something we ask David a lot. Which aspect of the certification process would you say organizations either tend to find the most challenging, or would you say find the most rewarding? And why do you think that might be? So do you have any, for example, you mentioned a couple of case studies or went through a couple of case studies. So what do you find either most challenging or most rewarding for these companies that choose to get EDGE certified?
I think I'll go with the most rewarding, if that's okay. And I think it's just giving organizations a clear evidence-based understanding of why certain dynamics exist within their workforce. Very often organizations might try and implement certain strategies or do something without any sort of evidence as to why it could work or change something within the organization. So being able to really set targeted actions that address real gaps, not assumptions, leads to meaningful and measurable progress. So, yeah.
Great. Makes a lot of sense. And I
Yeah.
just saw a quick question for you in the chat. Do you know roughly now how many companies are Edge certified globally? I have a number here, but I'm curious if yours is more updated.
I mean, ever in the system, we've had over 850 organizations certified, and currently we have around 250.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah, no, that's great to see and great to see the progress there. So thank you again to Nina. We really appreciate you taking the time to talk us through this important certification.
Thank you,
And if you do
Anton.
have any questions about Edge certification, please pop them in the chat. And we can also field or liaise with Edge if you send us an email after this if you have any questions about becoming Edge certified. With that, as we start to wrap up, I'd like to ask you to think back on today and our previous session on Monday, and we have a final Menti for you to complete for us to see what you took away from our time together. So I'm just going to pop that Menti up, but you should already see that on your screen. So, sorry, I think we're having some slight Menti issues today, but there we go. What is your main takeaway? What did you learn? Love to see, whether that's a word, a few thoughts, even a sentence, whatever you took away from this session, we'd love to hear. Sorry, I realized you can't see the Menti just yet. So there you go. You can see the Menti there. So that could be, something you learned in terms of a definition or a practice, something about a standard or a guidance. There you go, use of proceeds bonds, fantastic. So a financial product, a gender-themed financial product with bonds and their use of proceeds. Empowerment, great. Value of gender diversity, absolutely. It's great to see. Love to see some more answers on this as we wrap up. Okay, some more on bonds. Yeah, we always find the second session is really helpful, giving an overview of gender-themed bonds or gender-focused bonds, which are an important financial tool for advancing gender equality. Great. So we'll leave it there, but it's great to see some takeaways from you all on this session. As said, we really do hope you took something away from this session. I'll just pop the slides back up. There we go. Now, for continuing your learning journey, there are a lot of resources for you to explore and continue your learning journey ordered by units we've gone through. We also have training, additional trainings for you to be aware of and participate in the future. But you can see here we have so many resources because this training we've gone through over the last 2 days, a lot of research and work goes into it. So you can see all the resources for Unit 1, Unit 2, Unit 3, and of course Unit 4. And I'd like to remind everyone that you can download the handouts, which contain many of these resources on the website where there's the SSE event for Pakistan gender training. And please stay tuned into SSE training by subscribing to our newsletter for more relevant training sessions and information. And as said, these can all be found on the SSE website. I saw a question about the recording. We will also post the recordings on our website too, in case you wish to watch them, share them with a colleague, or just refer to them later on. Now, as promised, we're very grateful for your feedback on this training, and in this vein, in appreciation, we'll be sending out certificates of participation from the UNSSE, IFC, UN Women, and Columbia University for all of those who completed the 2 sessions and complete the feedback survey. So the feedback survey is your tool and way of getting your certificate. So you can access the feedback survey through the link being shared in the chat box by my colleague, and an automatic email will also be sent with the link 24 hours after this to all participants, which will also include the link to complete the survey too. So don't worry if you don't catch the link at this exact moment. Watch for your email. You'll get an email in 24 hours after the session, which will have the survey link as well. Please allow up to 5 working days to receive your certificate. So please don't email us tomorrow looking for your certificate or wondering where it is. It does take a week to generate after completing the feedback survey. So please wait at least a full working week before contacting us to ask about your certificate. And we do appreciate your patience as we do have hundreds of certificates to ensure are doled out. But the certificate will come, rest assured. With that, I want to let you know that there's a few ways to contact us, as well as the IFC and UN Women, and you can also refer to the guest speaker slides for their contact information as well. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. Of course, I want to thank Paul again for joining us today. It's always a pleasure to have you. I also want to thank Nina Pearson from Edge, who joined us today in that last part, for giving us that overview of Edge certification. Always great to have Edge, a wonderful partner of the UNSSE. Speaking of partners, very quickly, I want to thank our official supporters, and I want to thank our partners of the program, the IFC, UN Women. Again, thank you to Fatima for joining us today, Columbia University, and Government of Luxembourg Ministry of Finance, as well as a huge thank you to the Securities and Exchange Commission of Pakistan and the Pakistan Stock Exchange for hosting today's training. I see we're finishing a few minutes early. If you do have any questions, please reach out to us. But in closing, thank you so much for your time and your participation. Again, we hope you learned something and took away a few interesting tidbits or gained some knowledge from our time together. And we also hope to see you in a future training webinar and see you again soon, and have a great day. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you, everyone. Bye-bye.